Today I wanted to talk about what mindset looks like in the real world, using examples from sports, neuroscience, and from college. Specifically, I wanted to talk about how we can put the growth mindset to work for you in college and in your writing by talking about how to put a plan together and take action both to develop a growth mindset for yourself and how to make practical use of it in your education. So, sports are performed out in the open in front of an audience, and because of this, it's kind of a natural laboratory to observe mindsets and their effects. Carol Dweck in her book Mindset writes about many famous athletes who have very obvious mindsets. Some of them, like John McEnroe, the famous tennis champion of the 1970s and 80s, clearly have an extreme fixed mindset. Others, like Michael Jordan, one of the best basketball players in the history of basketball, clearly have a growth mindset. John McEnroe is kind of the poster boy of fixed mindsets. He believed that talent was all that mattered, and he thought he was all talented. He thought he was special and superior. He didn't love learning. He didn't enjoy a good challenge. When faced with hard work and obstacles, he would often give up or would erupt in temper tantrums to cover up his mistakes or to boost his confidence. In 1979, when he played a mixed doubles tournament at Wimbledon, he lost 3 straight sets in a row. He didn't play a mixed doubles tournament again for 20 years. He swore he would never play it again. He called it the ultimate embarrassment. This is what McEnroe thought of challenge and hard work. Quote, "Some people don't want to rehearse, they just want to perform. Other people want to practice 100 times first. I'm in the former group." So, John McEnroe was talented. He was the #1 tennis player in the world for 4 years, but because he hated challenges and practice, he admits himself he didn't live up to his own potential. For the fixed mindset, if success means that you're smart and talented, then failure means that you're dumb and not talented. Therefore, there is always an excuse or it's always someone else's fault when you make a mistake. When it comes to mindsets, Michael Jordan is kind of the polar opposite of John McEnroe. Today, often when we think about Michael Jordan, we think of one of the greatest basketball players in history, and we assume that he must have always been that way. He must have been a natural basketball talent. But what if I told you that he wasn't always a natural basketball talent? I bet this would be news to you. It was to me. But Michael Jordan was actually cut from his high school basketball team. Think about that for a minute. Somebody actually cut Michael Jordan from a basketball team. How could that happen? Then when he went to college, the college of his first choice, North Carolina State, they weren't interested in him. And then finally, when he went to the NBA, the first 2 teams that could draft him, the Knicks and the Lakers, they passed on Michael Jordan. So today we hear these stories, and it just doesn't make sense to us. How could someone cut Michael Jordan from a basketball team? How could someone pass up on the opportunity to have the greatest basketball player in history on their team? Wasn't it obvious they were passing up on history? Well, the answer is no, it wasn't obvious. But one thing that was obvious about Michael Jordan was his growth mindset. His growth mindset showed up in a lot of ways. One way was his willingness to work hard. When you speak to his teammates and his coaches, they all agree on one thing, that he was the hardest working man in basketball. Another way his growth mindset came out was in his willingness to listen to coaches and accept feedback. Walt Hriniak was one of Jordan's coaches, and he said, quote, "When you told him something, he actually listened." Michael Jordan worked on his game and practiced constantly, relentlessly, and with a growth mindset. You're probably wondering where our mindsets come from. Well, probably from a lot of people and experiences, but I bet a huge source of our mindsets comes from our parents. Michael Jordan was lucky to have parents who instilled in him an extreme growth mindset from a very young age. When he was cut from his team, instead of his mother trying to comfort him, she said, "Get back out there and discipline yourself." His father was always encouraging him to stretch himself, challenge himself, and try new things. And it worked. Michael believed in hard work, and he believed in challenging himself. Once when his team lost the final game of the season, instead of calling it quits, he went back to the court and practiced basketball for hours so he'd be prepared for the next season. From 1991 to 1993, Michael Jordan led the Chicago Bulls to 3 NBA championships. Then a terrible tragedy happened that devastated Michael Jordan. In 1993, his father was murdered. So this had a huge impact on him. He was tired of being a superstar, and his father had always dreamed that Michael would be a professional baseball player someday. So at the height of his success, he left basketball and to everyone's surprise, he started his career as a minor league baseball player. For 2 years, he worked hard and practiced. David Falk, Jordan's agent, said of this, "It took a lot of guts to retire when he did. It took a lot of guts to go play baseball and run the risk of failure after being incredibly successful at something else. But Michael is fearless." In 1995, Jordan returned to the Bulls, and he thought he could return to basketball greatness. That first year he came back, they did pretty good in the regular season, making it into the playoffs. In the playoffs, however, things went badly. They were eliminated in the first round. Everyone was shocked. So did he give up, never to return like John McEnroe after failing at the mixed doubles tournament at Wimbledon? No. Jordan admitted that he thought he could come back and dominate the game like he had before, even though he hadn't put in the hard work. So he determined to work harder and learn from that mistake. After that game, he said, "You can't just leave and think you can come back and dominate this game. I will be physically and mentally prepared from now on." So he learned from his failure, and for the next 3 years he put in more energy and effort than he ever had before, and he led the Bulls to 3 more championships. For John McEnroe, failure is the end of the story, the ultimate embarrassment, something to be avoided at all costs. For Michael Jordan, failure may not be fun, but it isn't the end, something to be avoided. Failure is information and motivation. For Jordan, there is no shame in trying something, failing, learning from that failure, and trying again. And that's how he reached his greatness, by failing and learning from his failures. There are hundreds of studies that have shown the benefits of having a growth mindset, and that changing from a fixed to a growth mindset is possible and beneficial. These studies have been done by Carol Dweck and many other researchers. As you saw in the video with Eduardo Braceno, when Dweck measured 7th graders' mindset, she could predict over the next 2 years whose grades would go up and whose grades would go down just by knowing their mindsets. Most importantly, Dweck also found you can change your mindset, even if you have a fixed mindset. If you pay attention to your thoughts and reactions, you can develop a growth mindset. By becoming aware of our fixed mindset messages we tell ourselves, such as, "It's no use, I'm just no good at this," and then talk back to yourself with a growth mindset message like, "This is harder than I thought it would be, but if I keep working, I can learn to be better at it," we start to develop a growth mindset. If we continue to pay attention to our thoughts and do this on a consistent basis, we will develop a habit of thought, and our growth mindset will become stronger. Then, the most important step, after you've replaced the fixed mindset message with a growth mindset message, is to take action. Make a vivid, concrete plan for what you're going to do, and then carry it out. When it comes to taking action or doing something that we think is important and that we care about, research by Peter Gollwitzer shows that vowing, even intense vowing, is often useless. What works is making a vivid, concrete plan. For example, tomorrow during my break, I'll get a cup of tea, close the door to my office, and call graduate school. Or, tonight after the dinner dishes are done, I'll sit down and work on my math course, or my writing course. So the method you want to use is you want to think of something that you need to do, a problem you need to solve, or something you need to confront. Then you make a concrete plan, and this involves doing 4 things. First, what is it I want to do? Second, when will you follow through with this? Third, where will you do it? And fourth, how will you do it? And you need to think about this in vivid and concrete details and then carry it out. So an important part of developing a strong growth mindset is to first of all come up with a growth mindset plan, imagine it in vivid, concrete details, and then carry that plan out. And the more often you do this, the stronger your growth mindset will become. In the next video, I'll show you an example of how to make a concrete and specific and vivid plan, which is a skill that will help you accomplish your academic and writing goals. And so it's a good study skill and a learning skill to practice, and it will also help you develop a growth mindset.